What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Strength Coach Rants. I'm your host, Connor Lyons, and today is a follow-up episode to a Title IX episode that we did last season. And sadly, we can now confirm that Joe Biden has, in fact, ruined women's sports.
I don't want to hear you, 'cause you cannot master the strength.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about how Joe Biden destroyed women's sports with the new Title IX policies that went into effect on August 1st of this year. This story is about an athlete named Blair Fleming, who happens to be a biological male, who plays on the San Jose State women's volleyball team, and a lawsuit filed against the Mountain West Conference on behalf of athletes who would be participating against this man playing with women. So Blair Fleming is in his third season at San Jose State. He's a transfer from Coastal Carolina. I say third season, but I believe that first year he sat out and then played last season and then is now playing this season. And people found out that he was a biological man, and all hell kind of broke loose within the conference. Teams decided that they were going to forfeit games. They're not going to play against him, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to either. I wouldn't want my daughter playing against a biological man in any sport. And it's really cool to see these girls and these women and these coaches stand up for women all across the country by refusing to play against a biological man. It's a huge win. However, right at the beginning of the season, actually the day before Boise State was slated to play against San Jose State, the Mountain West Conference created what's called their transgender participation policy, which is a total mouthful. This transgender participation policy stated that if you refuse to play against a team who had a trans woman or a transgender woman on the roster, that you're going to have to forfeit that game. It would result in a loss for you and a win for San Jose State. And so far, that's happened 5 times this season. And we'll go into why that matters in a little bit here. Essentially, this lawsuit filed this week was filed on behalf of 12 people, 11 who are volleyball players and 1 who happens to be a coach. The coach is a suspended coach from San Jose State who was suspended after filing a separate lawsuit that we'll go over later. And the other participant from San Jose State happens to be one of Fleming's teammates, and I think the assistant captain, if I'm not mistaken, of the team. And there's another lawsuit, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But in addition to that, there are 2 players who played on San Jose State last year who are part of this lawsuit, alleging that the transgender participation policy affected, the rights of these people who are filing this lawsuit. Man, that was like real roundabout way to say a whole lot of nothing. The claims are that this Mountain West transgender participation policy, I got to find a way to abbreviate that, chills and suppresses the free speech rights of the women athletes within the conference. This suit aims to ban Fleming from participating in the conference tournament. It asked for, I don't know why this is in quotes in the article, but enjoining both the conference and San Jose State from allowing Fleming to play. I guess that means that they want both the school and the conference to agree that Fleming shouldn't play. But then they also want San Jose State DQ'd from the tournament altogether. They want the wins due to forfeit vacated, and they want them flipped to the teams who sat those games out. And I'm trying to think what else. Policy was created. Yep, so they allege that the policy was created essentially after everyone found out that Fleming was indeed trans and was a biological male. They didn't want like a bunch of controversies, so they were like, all right, well, we'll just say you got to play these games or you forfeit. And in my opinion, that probably made things exponentially worse because now you've got a lawsuit, whereas before maybe you wouldn't have had one. The policy states that any team, again, that refuses to play against a trans athlete on any team. So this is like intra-conference play as well. So if you're a Mountain West team and you're playing against an SEC team and they have a trans athlete and you decide to sit it out, like the Mountain West is going to recognize that you lost that essentially, which is kind of wild to me. It was filed by the Council on Women's Sports, and it was filed in the District Court of Colorado. Yeah. So teams have forfeited games. There are 4 teams. Boise State forfeited one back in September. Wyoming forfeited 2, one in October and then one just a couple days ago. Utah State forfeited a game last month, and then Nevada also forfeited a game last month as well. And for the record, San Jose State is 11-5 this year. So with those forfeited wins, if they didn't have those forfeited wins, they could be closer to 6-10, depending on how those games would have gone. There's a quote from the suit here. I'm going to be reading this. Rather, on information and belief, the burgeoning controversy, which Commissioner Navarez apparently believe could lead to women's volleyball players and teams to exercise their constitutional rights to protest and boycott, caused the commissioner and her staff to hastily draft and post the MWC, that's Mountain West Conference, website a policy designed to penalize First Amendment protests supporting the right of women's volleyball players in the Mountain West Conference. So basically what they're alleging is that this policy takes away their freedom of speech rights. I don't know that I agree with that. I agree with what they're doing, but I don't know if this lawsuit, like, if you should have the right to sit out games and have it not affect you or penalize you. You know what I mean? It'd be like you suing your employer because you decided not to go to work so that you could go out and picket and protest, against the income tax, right? And your employer fired you for not showing up to work, and then you're like, well, I'm going to sue you because it affects you're taking away my First Amendment right. I don't know. That's a weird thing. Maybe they're just filing this suit to get this out there so people see it, and maybe you'll get some public pressure put on the Mountain West Conference to do something. It seems like, I'm not a lawyer, but that seems like a really stupid lawsuit. So this policy also stated that schools are responsible for identifying trans athletes, right, and ensuring that they are NCAA eligible. So I heard nothing about this dude last season. So I don't know if maybe he flew under the radar and they didn't identify that he was a man, and all of these teams that were playing against San Jose State had no idea because there was nothing about this last season. And he played. We'll pull up his stats in a minute here. But so that is now on the school. So you have to identify if there are trans athletes on your roster, and you have to kind of tell the world. And then if they decide not to play you, then they get penalized, and you get a win. Interesting. The lawsuit also includes details from a separate lawsuit, right? This is one of the other lawsuits that we're talking about here, filed on behalf of Beatty Smoose, who is the suspended San Jose State coach, alleging that Fleming's the dude for San Jose State, and a Colorado State opponent colluded to have Fleming throw a game and injure Schlussler, who is I want to say assistant captain. I'm 90% sure I read that somewhere, but a teammate of Fleming on San Jose State. So the original lawsuit that got this coach suspended, I believe it was filed last month, alleged that Fleming and an opponent, so a friend that happens to play for another university, colluded for Fleming to throw the game, or all 3 games, like they play like a best of 3, to throw the game, and then to also somehow injure one of her teammates, which is a pretty crazy allegation. For the record, Colorado State swept San Jose State 3-0. So who knows? The suit also alleges that the head coach, Todd Kress, who's the head coach of San Jose State, is offering preferential treatment to Fleming. Didn't go into detail what that meant. The university then promptly suspended the assistant coach, which probably good protocol, right? You've got somebody who's filed a suit against you. Maybe you say, hey, we're going to distance ourselves from you while this lawsuit is going on, and then after you win or I win or whatever, we can figure it out, hash it out. But that's what happened there. Schlussler, who is the teammate who was alleged to be colluded against to get her injured, said in an interview that essentially she felt trapped and had to continue playing. This is her final season of volleyball from the sounds of it, and she already used her transfer, so she can't do that. and she felt like she had to just kind of suck it up and continue to play with a biological man on her team, even after she's pretty sure that this biological man tried to have her hurt. Pretty interesting. That's like some stuff you hear about in cheerleading. That's not fairly typical for other sports. That happens in cheerleading quite often. There's also, there's that, I think it was in Texas where that mom put a hit out on a girl who made the cheerleading squad over her daughter. Wild. But yeah, you don't see that often in organized team sports. So we're going to pull up his stats from last year. Where are we? All right, so these are the stats from Fleming last season. So 25 kills, 2 assists, 29 points, 3 aces, 15 digs, and 4 blocks. Those were season highs. From what I can gather so far, Fleming has 250 plus kills this season. I mean, I'm not nearly versed enough in volleyball to really know what a kill is, but 250 sounds like quite a bit. And another thing about there's not a whole lot of info there, so we'll get out of there. Another thing about Fleming is that he transferred from Coastal Carolina. So originally he was playing in Coastal Carolina, transferred, I believe, sat out a year, and then played last season, and then is now playing this season. And I'm not positive, but I'm like 90% sure that just this season people are finding out that he's a biological man and they don't like it. So how does this all tie into Joe Biden? Well, I'll link in the description to an episode I did last year on Title IX rules, and the title of it was The New Title IX Rules. Did Joe Biden just destroy women's sports? And in fact, he did. Last year, Joe Biden decided that he was going to change the rules and regulations surrounding Title IX. From what I understand, you don't actually need legislation to get it done. It just has to be done via the whatever department happens to be in charge of Title IX. I don't think it's Department of Education, something else. But they decided that they were going to offer the same protections to transgender athletes that you extend to women. So what that means is that now you cannot discriminate based on one's sex or gender expression, whether or not they can have access to these things. And the video breaks it down really well. Like I said, I'll link it in the description if you're interested. It's a really good watch. It's got a lot of good information in it. But because of that new rule that went into effect on August 1st, you can't kick Fleming off the team. You have to let him play. Even if the school didn't want him there, it's like, too bad. You could face a lawsuit or like from Fleming, or you could have your money, your federal money pulled. Right? And that's like the biggest thing here. That's why these schools all kind of adhere to this Title IX stuff, is because if you don't, you lose federal funding, which is like a whole bunch of money. So now the way the new Title IX rules are like laid out, if you don't adhere to these new insane rules, you're going to lose government funding, which means that it might be hard to keep some of your athletics programs afloat. And schools don't want to do that, right? They want the money. Everybody, it's money, right? But and schools are pretty liberal, so most of them are going to kind of go along with this. But yeah, basically the new Title IX rules went into effect and made this so the school's hands are tied. And I believe the Mountain West Conference probably kind of just did what was in their best interest, in thinking that, all right, well, maybe they won't maybe they won't refuse to play if we force them to forfeit, which could have some impact, later on down in the season when it comes to tournament play. And again, that's what this lawsuit wants done. They want San Jose State DQ'd from the conference tournament, and they want all of the forfeited wins rather for San Jose State to be vacated and given back to the teams who were forced to protest or forced to forfeit in their protest, which is pretty wild. And from what I understand, that would really change the landscape of the tournament. It would, San Jose State has actually clinched the tournament, so it would push them out. It would bring somebody else in, which is opportunity for other not young girls, they're in college now, but for other women playing in sports. We'll see how this all goes. I believe the conference tournament is coming soon. Volleyball season is almost done, so the conference tournament would be either near the end of this month or probably at some point in time next month. So they're going to have to kind of get on this to get it done before that conference tournament happens. But my opinion, I don't think biological men should be playing against women. And again, I went in that video, I went into extreme detail about why I believe that. Not only do I believe it's unfair, obviously I don't want my daughter having to play against or with biological men, especially as you get older, right? You're in the locker room, and that's where people change, and that's where people shower. And I don't want young women having to be exposed to someone living in delusion, kind of throwing their parts around, right? So I'll keep you updated on this as we move forward. I don't know what's going to happen. Like I said at the beginning, I think this lawsuit's kind of stupid. You're not really infringing on their First Amendment rights by forcing them to forfeit games. But we'll see how it all goes. But that's it for this week. A quick episode. Just wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit. Like I said, I'll follow up if anything else comes of this in the near future. Go buy a book. We have the Dynamic Effort for Athletes is available, along with Simple Strength is available for athletes. We have Exercises in Futility. I'll link all of these down in the description. We have Exercises in Futility coming later this year, and then by the end of, later like next year. And by the end of this year, we should have our Total Hockey Training book. Should be available for purchase at some point next month, and I'll keep you updated on that. Check out the website. If you're local, check us out. Come look to train. And I think that's all I've got right now. Hope everybody has a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.
I don't want to hear you.